Hello, everyone. My name is Cheryl Crooks. I am Executive Director of CASCADIA International Women's Film Festival, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this interview with the director of A Shot Through the Wall. But before we get to that, I'd first like to thank the sponsors of this year's festival, KCTS, our major media sponsor, Crosscut Magazine, the Mary Redmond Foundation, and the Washington State Arts Commission, and all our other major sponsors without whose support this festival simply would not have been possible. Today's conversation with director Aimee Long will take place with Cascadia Advisory Board member Susan Lonac, who also is a professor of film at the Whatcom Community College and specializes in American women directors. Today's film, by the way, is sponsored by Pandora and Daniel Larner, and we'd like to thank them for their support. All right, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Aimee and Susan. Thank you so much.
Aimee, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you especially for sharing your remarkable film with us. It's a film of extraordinary power, and we are very grateful to be able to screen it at the festival. I wonder if you'd like to start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I really, I'm so happy to be part of this film festival. I wish I was there in person. So my name is Aimee Long. I'm the writer and director for A Shot Through the Wall. And yeah.
I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how you got started in filmmaking.
So I went to school for math. I grew up in a very Asian, very Chinese household where all my family are engineers. So that was the path that I was given. But I think right before college, I went to this program, for a summer program at Columbia University where we were just giving a camera and we had New York City as the backdrop. We can write anything, shoot anything, and I was very curious. And then I went into that program, and then just we made a short film. I made a short film, and that was exhilarating. That whole experience, and I sort of just fell in love with it. I still continue the path of math and algorithm, and I went into finance for a little bit. And I realized this is really, after all the vanity sort of died down, I realized this is not what I wanted to do. And I wanted to go back to film. So I went to film school and came out of film school for almost a decade later, finally made my first film. So yeah.
Thank you. What drew you to this film? What drew you to this story?
So there was an incident that happened in 2014 where an Asian American cop was doing vertical patrolling at Pink Housing in New York City in Brooklyn, and his bullet ricocheted in a stairwell, and it killed an innocent Black man who was coming down the stairs. And when that incident happened, there was the grand jury indicted him. This was back at the end of 2014, and within the Asian American community, there was a huge debate. I remember going home so I was living in New York at the time, and I was going home to the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area, where there was a big dinner with my family and friends. And I just remember at that dinner, everybody was debating whether that verdict was just. It was really interesting to me that half of the table was saying this Asian American cop was scapegoated. And the other half was saying, like, we were just asking for the same white privilege that the other cops had. This was at the heels of Eric Garner and Mike Brown. And it was a huge debate at that dinner table. And then I thought this was a really interesting incident to sort of explore who I am and where I stand in this sort of spectrum of racism today in America.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a film that takes quite a few risks, structurally, narratively, and I think those risks pay off handsomely. I was aware of myself as a viewer at one point, fairly early in the film, thinking to myself, so here we are, it's 2021, we're in the midst of a national epidemic of police violence against unarmed Black people. We're in the midst of an epidemic of Black people not seeing justice. And I remember thinking, and I think this is one of the risks that the film takes, I remember thinking for just a moment, early in the film, before you complicate the picture considerably. So here's the context we're in. I'm watching a film about a cop who is seemingly innocent and a shooting that was accidental. And the character, the police officer, Mike Tan, is portrayed as intensely sympathetic. And I remember thinking, is this the movie that I really need to be watching right now? And full disclosure, I actually considered turning the movie off, just stopping watching it. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because moments afterwards, you begin to develop a real complexity in the character of the shooter, the officer who shoots accidentally. And we start to see other characters hand him unwelcome information about himself and his own potential complicity in racism. And we also start to see the film consider the extent to which the character Mike Tan is himself a victim of racism. I'm wondering, were you aware of the possibility early in the film that you might lose part of your audience because of the risks that you were taking in setting us up at first to be entirely sympathetic with the character of the officer, and then only later complicating that picture? Did you ever worry about that decision to structure the film in that way?
Oh, definitely. I think it was a struggle from day one, from script stage. So I think I walked a really fine line trying to develop a character that the people would follow, that my audience would follow. I am very aware of the time and space this is all setting in. I think when I was writing the script, BLM was starting to happen, and then that first wave sort of died down, and then I want to make sure the film, the character, we would follow this character moving forward. I'm very aware that it came from a cop's point of view in some ways, but it's also, I think, in the point of view of an Asian American person, which we don't see a lot on screen. We never really see ourselves being represented as, say, a role of a cop as an Asian American person, I believe. And to me, that was important as well. And I also wanted to, I think this problem, the systemic racism problem, is a really complex issue. And I don't want to me, I didn't want to oversimplify this issue. I don't have all the answers. I don't have any of the answers, but I wanted to present this topic, especially at a time where I wanted people to talk about it. I think this was important for people to talk about systemic racism, talk about excessive force in the police training, and this was very much inspired by an actual case, but I took a lot of artistic liberties because to highlight those issues I want to talk about. I think at the time when I was a year into writing this project, BLM was still happening, but it wasn't as prominent in the news cycle. These sort of things just comes and goes in this news cycle. And then it wasn't until 2020 when George Floyd incident happened, it started to become a nationwide movement, which I'm really glad it is happening, but it's definitely a mixed bag of emotions when this is still so relevant. When my film, as a topic like this, is still so relevant today.
It's
I hope
unfortunate,
that
but
answered.
it's,
Yeah, definitely. I
yeah,
hope that answered your question.
yeah,
No,
yeah, absolutely. I wish the film were less timely than it is, because
oh, definitely.
here we are still in this epidemic of violence against unarmed Black people, and we're now in this epidemic of hate crimes and anti-Asian bias,
Yeah.
and it's a very painful time. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's a painful film. It's a film of it's a very tragic story, and um, I think one of the things that I'm grateful for in the film is that it's a story that walks us through some very painful realities, and that's, I think, one of the purposes of art is for us to use stories to work through the dilemmas that we face and the things that we suffer. Um,
Yeah, I wanted to shine a light on things that's not so, because when an incident like this happen, you see how it's politicized and you don't actually see the victims behind it, or, the people who got left behind. I'm in no way saying this cop was a victim in this story. I'm talking about all the people that their lives are being affected. And I think it was really important for me to see a somewhat accurate depiction of what would happen after such a tragic incident happens. And that was important to me. And yeah.
yeah. I should mention there may be spoilers in the conversation that we're having. In thinking about the characters who are the people who are involved in the aftermath of an incident like this, the shot that closes your film is one of the most powerful and heartbreaking two shots I think I've ever seen, between the mothers of the sons who died.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about what went into your thinking about that shot composition?
It was written, so we came to that ending pretty early on in the process. And I remember coming up with that ending. I think I have over the years I built up a good support system that I send my script to a few of my friends, and they would give me notes and stuff. And I think that ending sort of really hit home for a lot of people. And I realized I think this is where I want the story to be. And that image, I think, for me, I come first as a director than a writer. Honestly, I think I am a writer out of necessity, and because nobody is sending me scripts that I'm a up and coming director. So when I was writing the script, that was the shot that I had imagined to end this film. That there was no doubt in my mind that was gonna end on these two shot of these two women looking at each other through this. I think in the script I said it was a mountain of citrus, and we went to take whatever we can get at a supermarket. That was a challenge, getting an Asian supermarket to work with us, and it was a really interesting scene, because it was a huge supermarket, and of course they're not gonna. We were very grateful they let us shoot in it. We have a very tiny budget. We couldn't close down the supermarket. And those, I mean, it's really a testament to these two actresses that I had, and they were able to focus and gave me the performance that I needed for that last scene.
It becomes so painfully clear in that shot that what divides these two women is also what binds these two women in their shared suffering and their shared loss. And it's a long take. Right. You stay on that shot for quite a while, and it seems to me that that's an example of one of the many ways in which you trust your audience, you trust your actors, you trust the material. And it to me feels like a very brave closing. And it's also a closing that if such a thing is possible, it pulls the film for a moment out of the realm of the political and grounds it very intensely in the realm of the personal. And there are a lot of moments in the film that feel profoundly intimately personal. It's a family drama, among other things. Can you talk a little bit about the ways that you see the family dynamics operating in the film?
I think I draw a lot of that from real life. And yeah, like I said, I came from an Asian American family. A lot of things, so in the film, a lot of things took place on a dinner table. And to me, even I just realized when I was mentioning how the film came about, I mentioned the dinner table.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think that's where I think is somewhat unique to our culture in some ways, that we make all the decisions on a dinner table. We express love through food, through dinners, or, and that's such a important time, or that's such an important a thing in our lives where, we don't say a lot of things explicitly. We don't express love the same way. We don't outright, at least for my family, I can only speak for my family, where we don't really use the word "I love you," "I'm proud of you," or even, just doesn't matter whether it's words of encouragement or words of, explicitly expressing love. And we do that through, putting food into each other's bowls. And then I think that's just, I wanted to make sure that was authentic. And I think that was really important to me. And to cast that family, they are all Asian Americans. That to me was really important as well. And I think with authenticity, that comes a level of intimacy that I would like to share with my audience. So yeah.
Food is omnipresent in the film. Our very first scene, and I think one that sets us up, interestingly, to expect that everything's going to work out okay for Officer Tan, for Mike Tan, the protagonist of the film. We begin the film in the kitchen with Mike Tan and his mother, and they're having a sort of low-key war over how best to prepare a hard-boiled egg. And then we flash back 3 months earlier, and most of the rest of the film is told, I believe, in flashback. And it's an interesting move. And then the very next shot after that scene setting is Mike Tan eating a pizza on the street while he's on the job, before the moment of crisis that instigates the serial tragedies of the film. And there's a great deal of conversation about food. One of the ways that Mike Tan's mother inserts herself into the various interpersonal dramas that are playing out is by perpetually offering food as well. And so it really does feel like it plays a prominent role in the film. I'm wondering if you see any visual metaphors developing out of the placement of food in shots, or the sharing of food, or the eating food in isolation. Were you conscious of that operating on a metaphorical level?
I wanted to be a recurring almost theme, and I wanted to make sure it's a contrast how he eats with his family and how he eats by himself and with Ryan, his partner. That was definitely, I wanted that to play as a contrast, that he's just eating a pizza on the street versus they're having dinner, and also different dinner tables, how they were at their home dinner table, the family home versus Grace, the sister's place, how the placement, we actually put a lot of thoughts into the placement of food, and I worked with a food stylist and to sort of figure out how the difference of the placement at home, at the family home versus Grace's place, where it's a lot colder, and people the plates that people would use. Come to think of it, the plates that my parents' house and the plates that I have in my house is very different. I think it tells so much about first, second generation Chinese Americans, and how we sort of, I don't know what the right word is, evolve. I don't think that's, or assimilate in some ways, without even being conscious of that. I think I only started looking at that when I was making this film. So, yeah.
It's very interesting. Thank you. I think I remember one of the characters referring to Grace's kitchen as the fancy kitchen.
Yes.
And there's this sort of terror of messing it up in some ways. Is that part of the pattern that you were trying to develop?
Oh, definitely. I think there's a big contrast. I think the layout is in some ways a little similar, because there's a kitchen and then there's the dining area. And so both sets, the layout is similar, but it's very different in tone and color and placement, and how the, it's always cluttered and scattered in the family's kitchen versus in Grace's kitchen. It's pristine, it's clean, and that's what we perceive as fancy. And and also I think before for the set design before the mother who lost her son, the kitchen, because we see her cleaning the kitchen in the very last sequence, and we took out because there's a lot of red in that kitchen. We took out all the red and pink, everything in the red hue, and it becomes more somber and more monochromatic. Yeah.
As a way of telegraphing her loneliness, her loss.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. And the way in which life has really been scrubbed out of the film at that point.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
So,
I wondered if part of the sort of pristine quality of Grace's kitchen is a nod to the fact that she also has secrets that she tries to keep, and that she also tries to play things very close to the vest. We learn in the film, dating a white woman.
Right.
And so there's sort of a tension between partners and the family expressed in her relationship as well, in addition to the tensions between Mike and his partner Candace and the family.
Right, of course. Thank you for noticing that. I think that was my intention. I'm glad that came through.
Yeah. Lin Chen, of course, such a wonderful, wonderful actor. It was nice to see her again on the big screen.
Yeah.
I think my first awareness of her was in Alice Wu's Saving Face. And she was so wonderful in that film. And is seemingly impervious to age. She's just gorgeous and radiant and wonderful. And has, I think, a couple of the more heartbreaking scenes in the film, in fact, when she takes the call, in which she learns that Mike has died. My breath caught in my throat at that moment. It was truly powerful. It seems as though, I said earlier, you trusted your actors. Can you talk a little bit about their participation in the developing of the story? Can you talk a little bit about how you work with your actors?
Yes, sure. I had I'm very fortunate that I had a lot of really great people to work with. I worked with a casting director, Pat McCorkle. She was very patient with me. This is in a time where this was, when we casted, it was before Crazy Rich Asians and the wave of Asian American actors. And so it was honestly, took us a while to find that family. To me, it was really important to keep it authentic and make sure they are Asian Americans. And we really looked in many different cities, and we took many different months. We took almost a year to cast that family. Mm-hmm. And we were very fortunate that we found Kenny Liu, who plays Mike Tan, and Fiona Fu, who plays the mother, and Lin Chen, of course, and Tai Ma. He's just everybody's dad now. It's amazing. They're such a joy to work with, that whole family. They were very supportive, and supportive of, you know, Asian American representations on screen, and in the creative process, we talked a lot. I remember talking on, because some of the dialogue is in Chinese. Fiona and I went over the lines again and again to make sure it's the right dialogue, and then it's the right tone and all that. It was I got very lucky, honestly.
Were you conscious of the influence of other women filmmakers and other Asian American women filmmakers on the film?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm thinking, for example, you thank Mimi later in the credits, and I saw what I thought were a few shots that seemed like they might have been nods to the work of other women filmmakers. I'm thinking specifically of the shot of Mike Tan in the shower washing the blood of his victim off his body. And it made me think of a very similar shot in The Hurt Locker, Catherine Bigelow's Oscar-winning film, in which Jeremy Renner's character, William James, is in the shower breaking down, washing the blood of his victim off his body. And I thought that perhaps there might have been a couple of other shots that were nods to films made by other women filmmakers. And is that something that you were conscious of as you were making the film, or did that just happen?
Honestly, that wasn't. I love The Hurt Locker. I know the scene you're talking about, and now thinking about it, I must be my subconscious. And so no, but I mean, there's so many great female filmmakers out there, and I think we're just starting to sort of peek out of this, you know, this world, I guess, and we're starting to get a little bit of opportunities, which is amazing. So for there was something else, I think I just lost my train of thought. Oh, Mimi letter. So talking about being lucky. So my editor, Mike Fay, he was working on the basis of sex for Mimi letter when we were editing this film, and Mimi was so generous that the film was so generous that they sort of just let us use one of the editing suites that was open on their floor. Huh. So this whole time, so we were doing the entire post-production. The entire post-production took place while they were editing on the basis of sex. It was really, yeah, it was. That's why I was so grateful, and she was very supportive to a young and upcoming female filmmaker. I was so grateful. So yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So in watching this film, such an achievement. I'm thinking about this present moment for Asian American women directors in particular, and it seems so potent and so fertile, and Asian American women directors are breaking through in a big way right now. And I'm thinking specifically of Chloe Zhao, of course, with Nomadland, the probable Oscar winner for Best Film, if there's any justice. But I'm also thinking of Lulu Wang with The Farewell. I'm thinking of Alice Wu with The Half of It, her long overdue second feature film. I'm thinking about Lin Chen herself, now a filmmaker, as well. Are you conscious of being part of a wave of Asian American women filmmakers?
I don't know.
How does that feel?
I don't know if I can put myself amongst them. They're fellow filmmakers, and they're brilliant, and they're getting, you know, I mean, we're always here, and I think we're just getting the opportunities that we deserve. But I mean, taking myself out of this, but I look up to them. I would hope to work with them one day, and I'm excited that there's a wave of us coming up, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the future brings. So yes.
Thank you so much, Aimee Long. It's an extraordinary film, and we really appreciate you talking with us today.
Thank you so much, Sue. Thank you so much for having us, being a part of this film festival.